Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take a little bit of time to share with you my personal experiences with healing hands and also with co-impact sourcing, because I know that it can be easy to think looking at the various YouTube videos and stories and all the other testimonials. It can be easy to think, well, that's just something a few people will get to experience, or maybe that's not even all real, or maybe that's just for PR. Maybe doTERRA does nice things for people now and then, here and there, so that they can get a good photo op or something. And I want to assure you that's not the case with Healing Hands and Co-Impact Sourcing. They are the real deal. And I personally have quite a bit of experience. So I wanted to share with you what some of those experiences are. And I know that pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? So I want to share with you some pictures I threw together. Now, please don't judge my PowerPoint creation skills based on this. This was just literally throwing some photos together so that I could give you a glimpse and just kind of show you what doTERRA is all about from my personal perspective, because I have been able, and it's such a huge blessing, been able to have these personal experiences. So I'm going to go back to my very first convention that I attended. I was so impressed with the stories about co-impact sourcing and healing hands. And I know many of you have been as well, as you've seen some stories or watched some videos. And I decided someday I wanted to go on one of these co-impact sourcing trips. And so I got to do that in February 2017. This is in Guatemala, so you can see how lush and beautiful it is. This is where we source our cardamom essential oils. There were a team of wellness advocates who went on this trip together. There's some pictures of us. And they love doTERRA. They love healing hands in this remote region of Guatemala. It's called Sica Bay. You can see on the lower right, they've painted this beautiful mural with doTERRA healing hands for a very good reason. doTERRA has completely transformed this area. And it's not just about sourcing our cardamom from this area. It's about improving these people's lives, the farmers, the surrounding community, making sure they have everything that we would want our own families and children to have: clean water, good education, access to medical care. As we got to see a lot of that firsthand. Here, though, is where we got to actually go into the forest and see the cardamom plants. What's really interesting is you're driving into this area, you see tons of cardamom. And when you're in the cities, you see cardamom ice cream, cardamom coffee, cardamom tea, cardamom breads. Everything has cardamom in it. It's amazing. And I fell in love with cardamom on this trip. But what's unique about where doTERRA sources its cardamom is they're actually teaching better farming practices and teaching that farming this way, not clearing out fields, but right in the middle of these forested areas, allowing the cardamom to flourish there, actually creates some unique qualities in the cardamom. So our guide was able to teach us how our cardamom has some unique chemical constituents and components that other brands of cardamom, other cardamom sourced from other farms, even in the same region, do not have. And we could see that. We could see clear cut hillsides and fields where they're just row farming, just farming rows of cardamom. But this is growing out among all kinds of other trees. And we had to trudge through mud. It was quite a hike, but it was beautiful. And it was so neat to pop open those cardamom pods and taste those seeds and smell them and see where our cardamom is sourced. So that was one of the highlights of the trip. Then we got to go to the drying facility, and this was a neat endeavor that doTERRA did in this region. Rather than transporting to a different drying facility farther away, they wanted to have a drying facility nearby where the cardamom is harvested. It really preserves the quality of the cardamom, but it also, again, this is something doTERRA didn't have to do. doTERRA could have just built a drying facility and not outsourced the actual working of it, but they want to create more job opportunities for the people in these regions. They want everything to be in their hands, to be able to actually take pride in the work that they're doing and say, this is our farm. So doTERRA doesn't go in and buy these farms from the farmers. And doTERRA built this drying facility as a project to help people have even more work in this area as well. And they take great pride in it. It was spick and span. It was so clean. And we were able to go in and talk to some of the workers and see how it is dried right there, which is actually unique. A lot of times it has to be transported many, many miles. We were in, like I said, a really remote region, has to be transported farther away. And for every mile that it has to travel away from where it was harvested, there are some precious qualities that can be lost in the cardamom. So it was right there beside the fields, and it's owned by the local people there, not owned by doTERRA. doTERRA built it for them to be able to work and taught them how to take care of the cardamom to preserve the purity that we were looking for and to uphold the standard, which is the highest in the world, that CPTG standard that doTERRA has. So this was at the drying facility. And we also got to go to the distillery. And this was so exciting. You can imagine for a bunch of oil nerds and some of the corporate employees who'd never been here before from doTERRA too. So we saw where then the seeds, after they've been dried, they're bagged and they're stored here until they're ready to go into the still, which you can see at the right. We got to see what it's like. They kind of crush them up and then they put them in the still. And it's a steam distillation process. And so we were examining it and being taught, and there was so much science. I could never even begin to get into all of it. And for the sake of time, I won't try. But it was very fascinating. And then you can see off to the right, you could imagine all of us jumping up and down and getting really excited to see the cardamom distillation process with our own eyes and to see it coming off out of that still and out of those pipes and being contained in this glass container where the cardamom oil is distilled into before it goes into the bottling process. And all of it was just so amazing. We had some really neat people on this trip with us. Up on the left, you can see Tony Parker. He's actually the head of research and development at doTERRA, and he had not gotten yet to a chance to go travel to Guatemala to see this process for himself. It was his first time as well. So it was pretty amazing to see all of that. But that's not all. We also participated in some service projects and got to see what else doTERRA is doing in the area. They needed some fencing put up, and we were just out there digging post holes and putting in posts. They also partner on the bottom two pictures you can see, they partner with Mentors International. And Mentors International wanted every home in the area to have a stove, a wood burning stove that would actually get the smoke out of the homes, because previous to this they just had little holes in their roofs that would not ventilate well, and they were getting a lot of concerns with eye damage and lung damage from inhalation of the smoke and from the smoke in the eyes, and with little children and everyone in the home, elderly. It was just very unhealthy conditions. But Mentors International has a matching program, and so the people had to work to be able to pay for the cooktop, which was about a third of the cost, and then Mentors International provided the rest. And they had this project ready for us to come and lay the cinder blocks and put together, assemble the pieces, and they actually have piping like a chimney that takes the smoke out. So we got to participate in that. We also got to see the trade school where they have welding. And this really sparked my interest. And I'll tell you why in a little bit, but I saw the graduation from this welding school up on the right. My husband is talking with some of the people afterward. He had brought his drone and was taking pictures from up above. And that was pretty fascinating to some of the people who were with the welding school. And so that was really a neat process for us to be involved in some service as well, just going to see the whole process of distilling cardamom from seedling really all the way to the essential oil itself, but then to get to interact, it was full culture immersion, interacting with the people, seeing what else doTERRA has done in the area, and it was mind-blowing. doTERRA has done so much to teach them better farming practices, not just with cardamom, but we saw livestock, we saw how they're teaching them to take better care of their own gardens for their homes, to feed their own families, their vegetable gardens, their chickens, things like that. And doTERRA has many different programs to help them be able to even afford the livestock and other plants for their individual families as well. So interacting with the people was one of the best parts, of course. I'm there painting fingernails and playing with kids, and we went to a school where we actually were able to do a special program for the girls. The boys were not allowed, and some of you've probably heard of this. It's called Days for Girls. And this is a program where at the top right, you can see first off, it starts with teaching some self-defense and what no means, and that it's okay to say no, and what you do if someone's not listening when you say no, and how to protect yourself. And you can see on the bottom right, the room was packed, absolutely packed. Girls of all ages came from miles around to hear this presentation and to learn, and also to get a package from Days for Girls, which is an organization designed to help girls and women all over the world have what they need for their menstruation so that they do not have to be ostracized. They don't have to miss days of school or days of work. In some cultures, they're made to sit in a shed on a piece of cardboard or something like that until their cycle is over. They aren't able to go to school because they don't have any way to contain their menstruation product. And so they don't have any products to actually, hygiene products to help them be able to go and have a normal life. And so Days for Girls has distributed millions of these hand sewn kits. You can see us distributing some of those on the bottom left. And we teach them everything that's inside, and as part of a partnership with Days for Girls. So that is their mission, to provide these to girls and women all over the world so that they can have some cotton homemade sewn pads, and also soap and extra pairs of underwear, or maybe that's the only underwear they've ever had, things like that. And we teach them proper sanitation so that they can wash those, dry them in the sun, to sanitize them and reuse them for years to come. And they are so thrilled and so excited to receive these. So all of these things were really inspiring to me on this trip in 2017. And this is just scratching the surface of what we did. But what it inspired me to do was, for years I had wondered if my involvement with a ministry in Africa, in Tanzania, East Africa, could possibly coincide with my doTERRA career in any way. I saw doTERRA doing so much good all over the world, and I started to wonder, is there any way I could partner with doTERRA to help the people in that part of Africa that I love, people who are my friends and are like family to me. I've been to Africa several times. I had a girl from Africa live with my family while I was in high school for a few years, and I went home with her at the end, and we've supported her dad's mission. They're all native. It was native founded mission, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. But I started to wonder that, and this really inspired me. This whole trip to Guatemala got me thinking there has to be a way. And I found out that doTERRA has matching grants for wellness advocates that we can apply for, to get matching grants of either oils or funds for special projects all over the world, domestically, internationally. They have supported hundreds and hundreds of different charitable organizations with matching grants. One of my team members actually got a matching grant for oils to help at a recovery facility for after trafficking rescue. Women go through this rehab type facility, and there's a home for them, and she was able to get a matching grant of oils to help them with their recovery and their emotional healing. And I started to get really excited about this when I realized this is something I could apply for. So I applied for a grant in 2018, and it was awarded to us. And I had about 5 or 6 weeks to come up with $10,000, up to $10,000, and doTERRA would match that grant. And so I thought the trade school at our mission in Tanzania would be a perfect fit, because they already offered sewing, masonry, carpentry, welding. They already had these programs in place for young people who either couldn't afford to go to higher education. Now, these are not just adult students. They're primarily actually ages 13 to 18, or even as young as 12. So after about a middle school education, it works differently there. In order to go on to high school, they either have to have high enough academic marks to get a government grant to go on for higher education, or they have to be able to pay for it. And many poor families there cannot afford that. And so trade school is another option. And we have a trade school where they can learn various different skills so that they have a trade that they can go out and use in their communities and support their families. So they can learn these different skills already, And they really wanted to be able to add a culinary school. They wanted to add a cooking school. And that's something else that people can get jobs in the restaurant industry there, or even just to cook for their own families and communities to be able to take that back home. And we were able to do that. So for about $20,000, we were able to build the building you see down on the bottom. And up at the top, there's pictures of the inside, some of the cooking surfaces and the dining hall part of it. It also included a hot water tank system, which was really ingenious, that they built by hand. And so it was really exciting to get to go back and see this project completed, to see the building there that had not been there the last time I was there, and to know that our efforts as a team and my friends and family and many people who contributed toward this were able to help me get that grant matched fully up to that, or a little beyond that. $10,000 is what we raised, and doTERRA matched with $10,000. Well, it didn't stop there. The next year, I thought, I think that we also need a grant for our orphanage. And so we have this orphanage, and these are children who have gone through so much. They've endured losing their parents to illness or accidents. They have witnessed some really tragic things in their lives and lost everyone that they loved and had no other family who could take them in. And so they've been taken in at this beautiful orphanage. There are about 100 of them. The older students, you'll see these are all fairly young. The older students have the opportunity, like I said, upper education, higher education, including high school, is not available free, but we provide that for them at a private school, and they're able to go there free. Their sponsorship pays for that. So all of these orphans are sponsored by someone in the US. Several of my team members are sponsors of these precious orphans now as well, and I so appreciate that. So it's really come full circle. But you can see some of these faces and how precious they are. And they own several acres. They have a lot of farmland and some livestock to help feed themselves and support the children. And it was becoming an issue of security and safety for the children, that there was not any kind of a border or wall around the property. There are, animals, there are people who would try to exploit, knowing that these children are taken care of well. And it was becoming more dangerous, and really for one primary reason. There were multiple factors, but the biggest concern was this sweet little boy. You've probably already picked him out. His name is Ayubu, and his skin is lighter. He actually has albinism. As you might have heard the term albino, that's usually considered somewhat derogatory when it's referring to people. So he is a boy with albinism. His skin does not have pigment. He is fully African, and he has found a home here, which is so unique because I don't know if you've heard, but in many parts of Africa, people with albinism are ostracized and even hunted. In some areas, they're even thought to have either magical powers or to have some kind of evil possession that made them born without pigment in their skin. And people just don't understand the reason why they're born like that. And so they are often shunned, ostracized, or even hunted and maimed and killed. There are many stories. It's horrific. You can read about it if you want to, but I'm just giving you a warning. It's awful. People with albinism will show up at hospitals missing legs or arms, and they're, those parts are sought after for witchcraft, or they're just hunted down because they're thought to be evil. So we really needed to protect this little boy when he came to live at our orphanage, and it was becoming a security concern. So I applied for a second matching grant from dōTERRA Healing Hands Foundation, and this time to build a wall. And I was there with the children, and I asked them, and the director, you can see standing beside me on the top left, I asked, what else would you like? If you could have anything here at the orphanage besides needing this wall, but for the children, something that would excite them. They're not all that excited about a wall. They understood that it was needed, but they said they would love some playground equipment. And I thought, I wonder if we could roll that in. And at this time, dōTERRA had raised the limit from 10,000 matching to 15,000. So I applied for the grant. And I was able to get that grant approved. And again, I had about 5 or 6 weeks to raise $15,000. It was such a whirlwind, so crazy. I was so stressed. And it's okay if you raise less. Actually, you could raise less, but we had already gotten a quote for the project and knew we would need every dime of that to fulfill this dream for both the wall and the playground. So we were able to do that. You can see here, there's the wall behind me, and you can see some of it in the picture underneath with some of the playground equipment there. And the wall does encompass the entire perimeter of the orphanage, and there are gates in place and guards, and so we're able to keep these children safe when they're here at the orphanage. They do attend school down the street, and we were able to get them transportation to get there safely as well. So to really provide for these children to grow up knowing they have a home, this is their family, they're loved, they're getting education, good food, clean water, and as a bonus, some playground equipment. So they feel so special and so loved, and they're so grateful. And you can see little Ayubu off to the right going down the slide. And just to know that he has such a great personality. You probably picked up on that in these last photos. He has no idea. He knows he's different. He knows his skin is not the same, but he has no idea that he should live in fear. He has so much personality, and I'm so glad he doesn't have to live in fear. He is just so much fun and such a joy to be around. So we were able to get that matching grant of 15,000 for a total of a little over 30,000 to complete this project in 2019. And I was also, here's a couple more pictures of it. I was also inspired because I wanted to bring Days for Girls to this area as well. I knew that some of our older orphan girls really struggled with that. And when I talked with them about it, they were so excited. So a team member of mine was inspired, and I don't personally sew. They would not want me sewing their kits for them. But one of our team members, sweet Annie, she was really inspired by Days for Girls and started sewing kits for the organization. And I found out about it and asked if she could sew some kits for me to put into my suitcase and take over with me. And she and her team of seamstresses were able to do that. So they sewed these kits you see on the top left that I was able to take with me. And I asked the girls if this was something they really needed and wanted. And they were so excited. They were jumping up and down and crying. They were so happy. They said, "You don't know how much this means to us. Can you please bring one for each of us next time?" Because I only had enough to fit in my suitcase. And I said I would certainly try. And I had to cancel my trip in 2020. I was not able to go. I've been trying to go every year, and that did not happen last year. But a friend of mine was able to get there, and she was able to distribute more of these kits for me to even their caretakers. You can see on the bottom left some of the caretakers of the orphans and the schoolgirls. And so they were able to get more of those kits distributed so that all of the orphan girls could get their own kit, all of the older girls living at the boarding school. So those are some of the ways that I've been able personally to be involved and see for myself that this is not all talk, and this is not some PR marketing strategy to pull on people's heartstrings and make them think, oh, doTERRA is such a great company. They're doing so much good in the world. And I actually believe that we don't know the half of it, or even a smaller percentage than that. doTERRA has done so many of these matching grants and taken people all over the world, and everywhere that we source our oils, doTERRA does good in that region to make the lives better. They've built hospitals and medical clinics and schools, and lots of water wells have been drilled to provide clean water, and countless other projects. You can go to healinghands.org to learn more about some of those projects. But the bottom line is this: I got to see it with my own eyes in Guatemala, and it inspired me to make a difference in a part of Africa that is like a second home to me, where I have many friends and family that I love. And we got to bless their lives with the cooking school facility, the wall, the playground. And ultimately, it also inspired me independently to work with Days for Girls, and one of my team members who sews these kits for Days for Girls to take those over as well for the girls and meet some other needs. So I am so thankful for doTERRA and for the way that they partner with us, but also just take the initiative to go make the world a better place and make a huge impact all over the world through sourcing the oils in the most responsible way, but also through doing the most good that they can. And they don't brag about it. They're not really out there putting the stories out there that they could, there's hundreds and thousands of stories, and you can see on YouTube many of them, but it doesn't even scratch the surface. They're not big on promoting that. They're not going to exploit people to show how much good they're doing or anything like that. It's real. I've seen it, I've been there, and I'm so thankful. So thank you, doTERRA. Thank you, Healing Hands. Thank you for the co-impact sourcing initiative that has paved the way to make projects like these possible and to give us the best, purest, highest quality oils in the world. And just remember what's behind the bottle every time that you use a doTERRA oil, every time that you purchase one of these little brown bottles and use them, you are changing lives around the world too. By choosing doTERRA brand oils, you are making a difference for people all over the world to have a much better quality of life, to be able to retain their dignity through work, to be able to make a difference in their lives as well as your life and your own families. You have really no idea the impact that your purchases and your choice to use doTERRA and also to share doTERRA with others makes, if you choose to do that. So I hope this has given you just a little glimpse of how far reaching that impact is. Thanks for joining me.